Cowabunga! So she lost. As a black man, I wanted to make this video to try and explain why Stacey Abrams lost and why most black men aren't voting at all. First, let me discuss the political parties. Got to get that out of the way. So as everyone knows, you have the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, or the left and the right. The left focuses on working to help liberal Americans of all colors, creeds, and backgrounds, while the right focuses on working to help conservative Americans and Americans who fall within a certain income bracket. Two sides, two choices. And these two choices are diametrically opposed. Whenever the left tries to fight for the people, the right is always there shooting them down. Let's take a look at a couple of examples. The people are suffering, and they want gun control. But gosh darn it, the left can't help them because the pesky right is getting in their way. According to The Atlantic, the left can't pass the gun policies that they want because they can't get majorities to support their priorities. The world is slowly turning into an oven, and the people want their government to alter the use of fossil fuels so that we can slow down climate change. But gee whiz, the left can't do anything because the pesky right is getting in their way again. According to an interview on marketplace.org, the left has tried to do this, but senators from the right are blocking them. Darn. Women in America, they're demanding the right to be able to get an abortion if they want. But dag nabbit, the right is there once again to oppose them. According to CNBC, the left would need 50 senators to help make this happen. But wouldn't you know it, the right... oh, wait, it isn't even the right this time. At least 2 senators from the left said they'll oppose this. Even the Democratic President Joe Biden has said he'll oppose it. Well, gee willikers, the left and the right are always at odds and they can never agree on anything. Except one thing. When it comes to taking the tax dollars of American citizens and pumping it up to the wealthy, well, look at that. They always get on the same page. Let's look at a few examples. So you got H.R. 1. This was a bill to essentially lower taxes for rich people, which means that the burden to pay the costs to run this country, which are always going up, will have to fall on the poorer citizens. So that's allowing richer people to keep more of their money and reducing the amount that they have to pay to support the country. That money will have to come from the pockets of the poorer people, so essentially providing more money for the wealthy. Well, for this bill, the left and the right had no problem coming together, agreeing on this and getting this done. This bill, which was introduced on November 2nd, 2017, it passed both the House and the Senate in less than 30 days. So even though the left is always telling us that the wealthy should be taxed and that we, the poorer people, should have our taxes lowered, they had no problem giving in to this bill. The left and the right were quick to agree on this one. Next, you have H.R. 3401. This was a bill that took the money from Americans and transferred it over to contractors. Let me explain. This bill was labeled as a bill to protect our borders from illegals and to help immigrants who are fleeing. But that's just how it was framed. In reality, bills like this are used to enrich contractors. So the wealthy people that own the construction firms that have to build whatever is needed, or the wealthy people that own the factories that produce the products needed for this type of project, or the wealthy people that own the industries that build the armaments and vehicles used to enforce these new laws, they are getting richer. Our tax dollars are being funneled to them. Similar to Biden's law, the bill that asked for all of the extra prisons. Well, the contractors building those prisons, they get rich, while we, the taxpayers, receive thousands of needless prisons, things we can't use. These bills, cloaked in some kind of goodwill thing, are always just ploys to take money from the poorer citizens in this country. The wealthy sit around and come up with ways to have our tax dollars funneled to them. They then write up a bill, give it to whatever politician that they're bribing, and then the politician introduces it to have it turned into a law. And once again, for this bill, the left and right had no problem agreeing. It was introduced on June 21st, 2019, and passed in less than 5 days. Talk about bipartisanism. All right, last one, the most recent one. H.R. 7691, the bill to take our tax dollars and just send it over to some people in Europe. What people? How's it going to be spent exactly? Who knows? Just give us your money and we'll be taking it overseas. According to the bill, $40 billion is going to be sent to, and I quote, provide emergency supplemental appropriations for activities to respond to Russia's invasion of Ukraine. What the hell does that even mean? Basically, it means what I explained earlier. Some wealthy people want money, so they concocted a plan to just take money from the masses. And while the majority of Democratic supporters are suffering in this country and need to use their own tax dollars to help themselves, the left said, nope, we'll be spending your money elsewhere. And of course, the left and the right were in complete agreement once again. No fights or long drawn-out debates that took decades or years or even months. This was introduced on May 10th, 2022, and it passed in less than 9 days. So whenever the American people need something, the left and the right, they can never come together to get it done. But whenever the wealthy need something or want something, the left and the right have no problem accomplishing it. So if you really think about it, who does our government really work for? We, the poorer people, finance the government and this country by paying taxes. But whenever we ask for something, the government says no. But I just showed you how quickly they work when the wealthy ask for something. So I guess our government works for the wealthy. And why would they work for just the wealthy and not for all of us? Well, obviously, it's because the wealthy can pay them a whole lot more than what we're able to pay. The wealthy hire the people in our government. They find someone, they finance their campaign, they give them their marching orders, and the candidate, if elected, becomes an employee of the wealthy people that put him or her in office. And this goes for the left and the right. This Democrat-Republican thing is just an illusion to give stupid people the idea that they actually have some kind of say. Both sides work for the wealthy, so it doesn't matter who you vote for. Most people have finally caught on to this, and so they're no longer interested in playing this stupid game. For most of us in this country, our lives are going to be just comfortable enough so that we don't revolt. And voting is just a tool that the wealthy use to placate the masses. So now let's get back to Miss Abrams. Black men have realized all that I just said decades ago, so most of us never waste our time with voting. Since we belong to one of the most marginalized groups in this country, we've learned certain things before everyone else. Because we've watched as our needs have been ignored for centuries. So when people like Abrams comes along, we already know what she's about. But just to be sure, we ask questions. You never know. You may have someone who comes along that's honest and decent. So we asked her outright, Abrams, if we work to help put you into a position of power, will you do the things we want and need? Well, Abrams did everything she could to not answer us. That's all we needed to know. But we also looked into other things about her. And these things helped finalize our decision not to vote for her. You want to know what those things are? All right, let's take a look at Stacey Abrams. Stacey Abrams, she's actually an impressive person. She worked very hard and has excelled in many ways. I will acknowledge that. But when it comes to a person who will fight for the people, she hasn't done much. Abrams entered the political scene in 2007 when she joined the Georgia House of Representatives. She resigned in 2017. So that's a decade of work. In those 10 years, Abrams stopped a bill that would raise taxes and helped make a modification to a scholarship. Yep, that's it. Those were her major accomplishments. In 10 years, she didn't do anything that would systematically help the black community. So that's her record. Black men saw this and asked, if you haven't done anything for us in 10 years when you had the ability to, why would we believe that you'll do it now? Now, some people will say, well, she didn't have enough power back then. Maybe. But she did have a voice and a platform. And if a politician refuses to use their voice and their platform to help people that need it, that means that they don't want to ruin their chances to gain more power for themselves in the future by alienating or angering the people that can help them. So in reality, she ignored the black community because she was thinking about herself. Then something else happened that really stood out to black men. Remember everything that I tried to explain earlier about the wealthy selecting candidates, paying for their campaigns, helping them financially, and then demanding that the candidate work for them? Well, back in 2018, less than 5 years ago, Stacey Abrams herself said that she owed $54,000 in back taxes and that she owed $174,000 in debt. That's a total of almost $230,000 that she owed. Also, in 2018, she donated $50,000 to her own campaign. So let's say she took out a loan for that. That brings her debt up to almost $280,000. And if she didn't take out a loan, where did she get that $50,000 for her campaign? Who gave it to her? And what did they expect in return? Okay, so why am I bringing that up? Well, in the beginning of 2022, Stacey Abrams' net worth was reported to be over $3 million. That means that she went from being almost $280,000 in debt to having more than $3 million. Is no one curious to know where she got that money? Well, if you're too dumb to think about that, then don't worry. Black men aren't. That's a huge red flag. Who's giving her this money, and what are they demanding in return? Wealthy people don't just give money to people for nothing. That's not how you stay wealthy. Wealthy people invest their money into people, and they expect a return on their investment. So if black men spent their time and energy working to help Abrams get elected, would she be working for them? Who would she work for? The average governor here in this country makes about $150,000 a year. But if Abrams was in debt for almost $280,000 and her net worth jumped up to $3 million, then that means she made around $820,000 a year for the past 4 years. That's almost $1 million a year. So who do you think she worked for? The American people, who will only pay her around $170,000 a year? Or the people who have been giving her almost $1 million a year? This is stuff that people need to think about before voting people into power. As I've tried to tell people in the past, wealthy people don't just give cash to potential politicians. They don't want to be seen as bribing a politician, so they work out other ways to bribe politicians. One way is this: they'll promise them a job when they get out of office, a high-paying job that promises lots of money for almost no work, or they give them contracts for things. So if you do what the wealthy person wants, well, you'll get a nice contract for a book deal or for speaking engagements where you give a 45-minute speech and get paid hundreds of thousands of dollars. And if we focus on Stacey Abrams, she's already been given a huge contract from the wealthy. Let's take a quick look. In May 2021, Abrams published a book called While Justice Sleeps. I'm sure most people haven't even heard of this book. Well, in less than 1 year, she was able to finalize a contract with NBC Universal to have her book turned into a television series. NBC Universal, you know, the huge conglomerate that owns television networks, news programs, and theme parks. In less than 1 year, Abrams was able to sell the rights to a book she just published, and she got an executive producer credit, which means she'll more than likely have access to being attached to other shows and movies in the future. She now has the opportunity to gain millions of dollars in the future from just this one opportunity. That's how bribes work in this country. Wealthy people go behind the scenes and create huge business deals with people. And in return, they expect that person to help them financially by pushing policies and laws that help those wealthy people at the expense of us poorer people. So this is why as black men don't waste our time with voting, because we know that it's a joke. Black men need reparations so that we can get out from under the systematic and economic boulder that's been placed onto our backs by this country. Once we're able to pull ourselves out from under that boulder, we'll be able to better take care of our families and our communities. That includes taking care of and supporting our black women. So we know what we need to help our community. And we know that people like Stacey Abrams and any politician in this country will do everything they can to keep us from getting what we need. So why in the hell would we vote for them? Why would we work to put someone like Abrams in a position of power when we know that once she gets there, she'll do everything that she can to ignore us while working for wealthy whites? Wealthy whites like Jeff Shell, the white Jew who runs the business NBC Universal, the same company that is constantly working to undermine the progress of the black community, the same company that gave Stacey Abrams her new television deal, the same company that runs liberal news shows that are overseen by a man who used to make his money overseeing conservative news shows. Black men know that this is all a game and a joke. That's why people like Jeff Shell moves between companies like Fox News and MSNBC. He can easily oversee a conservative news program and then jump over to a liberal news program because both the conservative and liberal sides work for the same small group of wealthy people. They're practically interchangeable. So when you want to blame someone for Stacey Abrams losing, blame her. She perpetuates this system that takes advantage of the average American citizen so that it can enrich the wealthy. And as long as politicians like her keep ignoring us and the things we need and want, we'll keep ignoring them. You don't vote just because someone belongs to a particular political party. This isn't a sport, dummies. You're not rooting for your team, and this isn't a game. You're supposed to be picking someone that you know is going to do something for you. That's what voting is for. You pick people for a reason. And right now, and for the foreseeable future, every candidate that you see running is someone selected by the wealthy, vetted by the wealthy, and controlled by the wealthy. So if you're focused on voting to try and get change, then you're just as dumb and naive as the wealthy people hope you are. Now, last thing, I always try to give my solution for getting change. Anyone suffering in this country who's looking for a way to get some relief from the government, there is one thing you can do. You can stop shopping. Change the way you shop. In this video, I talked about NBC Universal giving Stacey Abrams money. Things like this happen all the time. The wealthy use their money to control our government, which in turn controls your life. Can't get a livable wage, can't get universal health care, can't get student debt relief, can't get help slowing down climate change, can't get police reform. You can't get those things because your government isn't passing laws that will help you get that change. And they're not passing those laws because their real bosses, the wealthy men and women who own the businesses that will have to pay you the livable wage, the ones who own the insurance companies who stand to lose money if you get universal health care, the ones who own the banks that stand to lose money if your debt is paid quickly and they can't charge you interest, the ones who own the companies that stand to lose money if we stop using fossil fuels, the ones who benefit from the freedom that the police have, those people pay money to your politicians and instruct them not to pass those bills, and they instruct them to keep you distracted, divided, and placated. So as long as the money keeps rolling in, the wealthy will keep doing everything they can to keep you stagnant while they continue enriching themselves. And if you don't change what you're doing, then why do you think your situation will change? You can complain and complain. March and chant and protest and rally, it doesn't matter. As long as you keep the money flowing in, the wealthy don't care what you do. So all the protesting means nothing because they're not listening to you. They don't have to. Thanks to you, the system that they put in place is still running along nicely. It's only until you disrupt that system that they'll start to pay attention to you, because then their money will have stopped rolling in. And it's only then that they'll come out and ask, what's going on? That's the only way you'll get their attention. So you have to stop shopping. Now, stop shopping doesn't mean not buying anything anymore. That obviously would be unrealistic. But you can alter the way that you shop. Stop going to the big chain stores, the big department stores, the big supermarkets, the big clothing stores. Shop at locally owned mom and pop stores. Go to farmers markets. Grow your own food. Buy your clothes from small businesses online. If you keep buying from them, then things won't change. So, for example, Comcast is the parent company of NBC Universal. They own things like DreamWorks and Xfinity. So if you go to big stores like Best Buy and purchase DreamWorks films for your children, like Kung Fu Panda or How to Train Your Dragon, or you go to those movies, go to the theaters to watch those movies, you're contributing to NBC Universal. If you use Xfinity as your cable provider or your phone provider, you're contributing to NBC Universal. NBC Universal then goes and uses that money to bribe people like Stacey Abrams. Then when the black community goes to Stacey Abrams and asks if she'll support the things we want and need, she ignores us and lies to us. That's how it works. You take your money and give it to these big companies that are all owned by this small percentage of wealthy people. The wealthy people then take that money and use it to make sure that the things they want and need are taken care of. Unfortunately, the things that they want and need are always detrimental to the rest of us. So by spending your money blindly, you're financing many of the bad things that are happening to you. Climate change getting worse and your house and neighborhood gets destroyed by some crazy storm? Well, it's your fault because you blindly fund the men and women who pay our politicians to make sure that we stay dependent on fossil fuels. Your child gets killed in a mass shooting at their school? Well, it's your fault because you blindly fund the men and women who pay our politicians to block gun control measures. You get sick, go to the hospital, and rack up so many bills that you're now bankrupt? Well, it's your fault because you blindly fund the men and women who pay our politicians to make sure that instead of using your tax dollars to help you with things like universal health care, it's used to go overseas to help defense contractors get richer. If you want change, you have to pull your money. That's the only way that you'll get the attention of the people that matter. Now, I don't ask people to share my videos. I don't ask people to subscribe, like my videos, none of that stuff. I only ask that if you've heard this and it makes sense to you, that you share the concept, the message, and the idea that if you stop shopping, then that is the only way that you'll get any real change. Stop shopping.